So delightful to be here. Good morning, Fulbright University, Vietnam. Thank you, President Scott Fritzen. Thank you, Chairman Thomas Vallely, Mr. Pham Duc Dim, did I say that right? Acting Director of Ho Chi Minh City Department of External Relations, U.S. Consul General Susan Burns, parents, distinguished guests for having me here today, and of course, congratulations to the graduating class of 2025. It took me 26 hours to fly from America to Vietnam, and it only took me 4 minutes to get to space from my rocket. But even halfway across the world, I find myself feeling at home. I here in this community with extraordinary Vietnamese people. Today, while you're graduating and about to embark on the next phase of your life, you might feel scared. And I know what it feels like to feel scared. I still remember what it felt like to walk out of the hospital after my rape kit procedure. I never fully understood the definition of lonely until that moment. And now, when I look at this crowd, I am not lonely anymore. It's a far cry from that moment 10 years ago when I felt so powerless. Before I became an astronaut, before I was Time Woman of the Year or nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, I was a college student, just like you. I was a student that thought I had my entire life ahead of me until it all came crashing down after my assault. The first time that I walked into a rape crisis center, there weren't enough seats for us in the waiting room. And I had intellectually known how prevalent sexual violence was, but I didn't understand it until I became a survivor myself. And if I was struggling so hard to save my own evidence, and I had a Harvard law professor helping me, what was everybody else doing? And that's when I realized I had a choice. I could accept this injustice or rewrite the law, and one of these choices is a lot better than the other. So I rewrote it. I made another choice to set aside my astronaut dreams to fight for rights, traded in my telescope, and created Rise, a nonprofit led by survivors to fight for our rights. And in 6 grueling, thrilling, and incredibly intense months, we passed the Survivor Bill of Rights unanimously through Congress. There's a long tradition of people taking their painful living truths and channeling that into justice. If that bill could speak, it would probably scream from the pages and light itself on fire. But this is what I did with my fire. Today, I want you to ask, what will you do with yours? It's been over a decade since I graduated, and today I'll share with you 4 lessons that I've learned. The first lesson is empathy. This week, Rise passed our 114th law. After 10 years of passing laws, we've noticed some patterns. Which campaigns win or fail? It's not how smart people are. It's not how well-resourced people are. It comes down to one factor. We call it radical empathy. Radical empathy is the ability to see the humanity in someone who might not see it in you. And that's a tall order to ask of someone who is a victim. Empathize with a decision maker who might not see your full humanity. This work is hard, but if you're able to have that grace and practice that empathy, you can reach across the political divide and find a way to make real change. This is the #1 defining factor in which campaigns win. We must be brave enough to have difficult conversations. And if we're able to have difficult conversations with grace, we can win. The most difficult conversation I've ever had was at the Vatican. Let me set the scene. I, a survivor, was there to talk to the Pope about a very, very sore subject, rape survivors of the Catholic Church. I needed the Pope's blessing in order to win the votes for our United Nations General Assembly resolution, a resolution that would, for the first time in world history, codify a standard of justice for 1.3 billion rape survivors. Where do you even begin when there's so much at stake, when there has been so much pain that has been endured for so long? I began with empathy. I talked to him about our mutual love of space, about how the overview effect affects us, and about how we are all on this planet Earth together. I talked to him about how we can work together to make our world a safer world for all survivors. People told me that it would be impossible for me to pen my own civil rights into existence, and then the US Congress passed our bill unanimously. They said it would be impossible for the Vatican to allow me an audience with the Pope about this issue. And they said it would be impossible to pass my legislation at the United Nations. And in the end, we received the Pope's blessing, secured the votes, and passed unanimously. Impossible is just an opinion. The second lesson today is that we are multitudes. Innovation lies at the edges of our different interests. Your education at Fulbright is a liberal arts one, focusing on interdisciplinary skills to address real-world challenges. Being interdisciplinary was a core strategy behind our success to make change. You might not be able to guess what strategy we used to pass the resolution. It's fashion. Now, I love fashion. Honestly, I'm here for this fit. Okay. Also, I must confess that I did not know that this regalia would be less than the height of my dress and shoes. So I wore tennis shoes, but I'm comfortable. Now, when I was sitting at New York Fashion Week, I had someone say to me, "I love your outfit. What were you wearing to that show?" And I realized that I had heard these words before. What were you wearing? These are the same words that survivors are asked after their assault. What were you wearing? In the fashion context, it's positive. It's asking you about your choice in your identity, what you wanted to express about yourself that day. But in the other context, it's the literal opposite, shaming you for the violence that happened to you. What if we could flip that? New York Fashion Week happens to be right before the United Nations General Assembly, and we needed to grab the attention of ambassadors in order to secure their vote. And so I thought to myself, what has an ambassador probably never done, but would be kind of interested to do? Sit front row at New York Fashion Week. So we threw New York Fashion Week's first ever Survivor fashion show, where survivors and celebrity allies walked the runway in clothes loaned by designers to take back that phrase, "What were you wearing?" We invited the UN permanent representative ambassadors to sit front row, and they came. That night, we confirmed 25 countries' votes on the spot. The show has been such a hit that we've done it every year since. The third lesson is about courage, the courage to be authentic. Class of 2025, it takes bravery to do what you're about to do. Step out after graduating and find yourselves. This is perhaps the greatest quest that we embark on in our lives, to find out who we really are. Many of us carry the weight of others' expectations on us. Society's expectations, parental expectation, peer pressure, and I have been there. You can probably imagine what my parents' reactions were when I decided that after earning a Harvard degree, instead, I would become an activist. And although it horrified them, they were fine with that decision after I was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. My point is that many of us are presented with the choice to put others' expectations of us above our own passions. And sometimes we carry a little guilt. Perhaps we must sacrifice ourselves to seek justice for others. And we ask this, for we might see ourselves in so many who publicly suffer injustice. And my reply is this: No one needs to light themselves on fire to keep others warm. It is admirable to want to help the world, and if that life of justice calls you, I will be there to fight alongside you. But I also want you to know that it's okay. It's okay if you only save one person, and it's okay if that person is you. Joy is the most radical form of rebellion, and my wish for you all is that you can find the courage to be who you authentically are. Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather acknowledging the fear and walking through it anyways. And remember that everything that you ever want lies on the other side of fear. The final lesson I have is on love. One of the most common questions I get is if I was nervous to sit on top of a rocket. But to be honest, I was more nervous about how Vietnam, my heritage country, would receive the news that I would be the first Vietnamese woman in space. I was nervous if I would be accepted here. How do you find belonging when the foundation of your identity is rooted in two nations? I look to the literal Vietnamese translation for Viet American, người Mỹ gốc Việt, an American with roots from Vietnam. That no matter where we are on this planet, our roots came from here, Vietnam. Astronauts experience the overview effect. It's essentially an existential crisis because we see that everyone is on this planet together. We are all on this spaceship Earth. Most astronauts leave Earth as technical people, but return to Earth as humanitarians, profoundly moved to make a difference in our communities. People have asked me countless times whether I experienced it. And yes, I did, but the feeling wasn't new. It called upon a feeling I had already known. One of the greatest adventures we all embark on in life is to learn where we belong. And it's a struggle we all go through. And when I look out on this crowd tonight, I find my answer. And the answer is this: we belong at home. Home is a place where love is, and love reaches beyond borders, even into space. I remember the first time that I shared my story as a survivor. It was many hours of talking to politicians who did not care. Some of them were really honest and straight up told me, I sympathize, but this isn't going to help me get reelected. Honesty, how refreshing. I went home and I cried because that's the human reaction. And I was just like, I need someone to tell me that they love me. And the next morning, as a pathological optimist, because you kind of need to be one to be an activist, I went back to the US Senate. I got a taxi. The driver was a man, kind of intimidating, didn't really talk to me. But when he saw that I was going to the Senate, he asked me why, and I told him. And this once intimidating man started crying, just tears welling from his eyes, and he said to me, my daughter was also raped. And what you went through, she went through too. When he stopped the car, he said, can I shake your hand? Thank you so much for fighting for my daughter. Has anyone told you that they love you today? I love you. And I'll never forget that dad. This is our story. It's a collective story of progress. When we work on our communities, it's more than just the direct community that it impacts. Our courage radiates and rings out so much more than we can imagine. Astronauts ring a bell before we board our spacecraft. It's an adoption of the nautical tradition of ringing aboard sailors when they board a ship. When I rang my bell, I thought of Vietnam, of how being the first Vietnamese woman in space is about holding the door open so that others can follow. When I rang my bell, I thought of her, the girl I was before I was hurt, the girl I made a promise to, that I would not forget her dreams. For everyone here, I want you to know that no matter what life throws at you, we can heal, survive, and thrive. We can honor the person we were before we were hurt. No matter how outrageous they are, like flying to space, they can still come true. So class of 2025, may you discover what your dreams are. May you have the courage to hold on to your dreams, and may they all come true. Thank you.